What's up, everyone? Welcome to the video. We are here breaking down the Thursday Night Football Showdown slate to kick off the 2022 NFL season. We have the Bills taking on the former Super Bowl champions, the Los Angeles Rams, in which should be an awesome game. We have an over-under of 52.5 currently, a tight spread, should be back and forth, lots of big names, and I'm totally looking forward to it, as I'm sure most of you are as well. You can make some pretty fun-looking lineups. I think the pricing is pretty soft over on the DraftKings side of things to kick off the season. Lots of big contests, obviously several milli makers over on DraftKings and on FanDuel. So whether you're playing on either site, you should be able to have a good time. I'm definitely going to be taking advantage of some of these contests. But if you are brand new here, little introduction. My name is Chris Pennell. I typically break down NASCAR DFS each and every single weekend on this channel, but I also like to dabble into the NFL streets and also over for baseball. You can also find me on Stokastic, as I am the head NASCAR guy over there, and I do some MLB content on the side if you ever want to check those out. And if you do end up enjoying today's free content, the only thing I ask in return is if you can leave a like down below, subscribe to the channel if you are new, and hit that bell so you're notified whenever I post new content. We'll be doing weekly videos for NFL, for all the showdown slates, and just some weekly picks videos, core plays, and prize picks videos throughout the season if you think you're going to want to check those out. And don't forget to check out the sponsor of the show, Prize Picks. They do make these videos possible, and they are running an awesome promo for week 1 where you can just take the over on Tom Brady, 0.5 passing yards. Obviously, that's a lock unless he happens to break his leg on the first play and it's an incompletion. Hopefully, I did not just jinx it, but I'm sure they'll refund you anyway if that happened to happen. So if you are a new signing over there, use promo code CPEN to sign up. You can use the link down below or head over to prizepicks.com. And you can also get an instant deposit match bonus up to $100. It is free money. Use it to your advantage. But I think with that being said, that's it for the plug. So let's get right into today's video. All right, so getting into it, I typically like to go through the numbers here on the spreadsheet, position by position, then head over to DraftKings and try to build a lineup as we talk through it. Obviously, I wouldn't recommend playing the lineup, but just trying to see what fits as we go through it. And if you do want access to the spreadsheet, I do make it available in the link down below. There's projections, ownership projections, my own optimizer, which can build 150 lineups. Use all the settings you want for DraftKings. Discord community, and I cover other sports, baseball, football, NASCAR, and the NBA, if I didn't already mention that when that season does start up. But let's get into it. Again, if you want all the access to it, link can be found down below. But we'll start with the quarterbacks as always, and we have Josh Allen, arguably the best fantasy quarterback in all of football, $12,000 over on DK. And I am not really one to roster quarterbacks in the captain spot too often, but when we get a quarterback with rushing upside like Josh Allen, like Lamar Jackson, that's when I'm more inclined to do just that. So I'll definitely be getting some exposure to him in the captain spot. Not sure he's going to be my most popular captain. I think there's 3 I'm really looking at right now with Cooper Kupp, Stephon Diggs, and Allen, but I'm certainly going to get some exposure there. I wouldn't say the matchup versus the Rams is the easiest spot in the world, but I'm not really one to care about matchups too much anyway. Good players, good teams find a way to get the job done either way. And Allen ended the season absolutely on fire. The 2 playoff games, scored 40 fantasy points back-to-back weeks, over 300 passing yards, and 9 total touchdowns in those 2 games, averaging 260 passing yards per game last year, a little over 2 touchdowns. But what really makes him valuable is that rushing upside that he offers you, nearly 50 rushing yards per game, which is kind of a built-in extra passing touchdown, nearly a half a rushing touchdown per game. And he obviously has fantastic weapons in Stephon Diggs, Gabe Davis, who I think is going to break out this year. You have Isaiah McKenzie, Jamison Crowder, obviously Cole Beasley did make a departure this season, but then you have Dawson Knox and some decent running backs that he can get the ball to as well. So no problem with Josh Allen here. Yes, he is expensive, and no, the matchup wasn't amazing if you're looking at some of last year's numbers, although the Rams team did change up a little bit. But I have no real concerns here. I'll be playing a good chunk of Allen, probably my highest owned player. If not, he'll be very close to it. And then Matthew Stafford, he's a little bit more of a question mark. Obviously, there is some injury concerns here, but the right elbow did get an injection in the offseason, but McVay did say he's completely good to go. No limitations. If he had to throw 50-plus passes, he could do that without hesitation. And this is going to be a back and forth game. It looks like the Rams are going to be the underdog here, 25-point implied team total. So there's going to be a lot of points being scored. I know the Bills defense was absolutely incredible last season. If you're looking at their numbers, they were first DVA versus the pass, and they allowed the fewest points per game to the quarterback position, only 12.7 points per game and under 180 passing yards. But like I said, I give the edge to good offenses, good teams, good players, and the Rams have just that. They have good coaching, and Stafford averaging nearly 300 passing yards per game last year. He's got arguably the best wide receiver in football. You can make a case for Jamar Chase or Justin Jefferson, but Cooper Kupp is no slouch. Obviously had an amazing season last year. and Stafford completed over 75% of his passes. The thing is, though, doesn't offer you that rushing upside, so that's why I'm more inclined to play him as a flex play rather than a captain. I will get some captain exposure to him, but it probably will be a little bit less than the field. 2 rushing yards per game compared to 45 with Josh Allen. I just think it makes way more sense to get a pass catching option in the captain spot and then correlate it with Matthew Stafford as a flex play. Like, I'd much rather get to Cooper Kupp in the captain. I'd much rather get to Allen Robinson. And then you can maybe make a case for Tyler Higbee if you want, but I do think Stafford is the better flex play here rather than going him in the captain spot. Now let's move over to DraftKings here and just try to plug some positions in as we talk about it. So I think Allen's a fine captain play. I'll definitely have some exposure to him in 150 max in the captain spot, but for this specific lineup, I think we're going to go a different route where we're going to go with Allen in the flex spot. And we will see if we can fit Matthew Stafford in here as well. I'd like to. It might be a little bit tough, but we're going to see what we can do with it. That's 6,800 left per player, so can get an insane captain. We'll have to find some value somewhere, but I think we can make it work, but we can interchange if we need to. And moving on to the running back position, not really too fond of any of the running backs here just because I prefer the passing attack on both sides in this game. But we will start with the Rams group here first, which consists of Cam Akers and Darrell Henderson. You could also throw in Kyron Williams in there, but I'm not really expecting much out of him for this game, so we'll kind of limit that to Cam Akers and Henderson. But Cam Akers here, obviously going to get the first crack at being the volume back. We saw that in the playoffs last year, and that was coming off a major injury that he had. But if you're watching the games, he did not look that great, and he was very inefficient. He did have 24 carries in that one game. He was used a little bit in the passing game, although Henderson is going to be a bit of a change of pace back, and I expect him to get some passing down work as well. Did get a handful of targets in the Super Bowl versus the Cincinnati Bengals, but Akers is going to be the volume guy here. It's just I prefer the passing attack, but if he falls into the end zone, catches a couple of passes, and gets 50 plus yards, it might get the job done if the Rams have a mediocre passing attack game, or they're not really scoring too many points. But like I said, definitely preferring the passing attack here. Henderson seems a bit expensive. He's going to have to fall into the end zone to probably make that work at that price point. And then the Bills running back room here, it's also a bit of a question mark. Devin Singletary, I expect to get the first crack at getting the majority of the touches here, but then you have Zach Moss and James Cook, the rookie. And if I had to put it in order of preference, I would put it Singletary just from a projection standpoint, but I would prefer James Cook over Zach Moss. He's only $200 cheaper, and I expect him to probably have a little bit more upside here. They're going to want to see how the rookie can do, and I think there's a little bit of upside there. And whoever's on the field for the Bills at running back, they're going to have value. This is a good offense. It's going to score a lot of points. It's just kind of a guessing game at this point. So I think maybe just taking the flyer on James Cook because he's the cheapest option there might make the most sense, and projection wise there is some decent value there. Then moving on to the wide receivers, this is where it gets a bit fun because we have a lot of names here and they're going to carry a lot of ownership, but for good reason. I am a big fan of the passing attack on both sides for this game. Lots of great options here. We'll start with the Rams group first. Obviously, you have the big dog Cooper Kupp, $12,400. And you have Allen Robinson filling in for Odell Beckham Jr. and Robert Woods' departure. He's going to be the wide receiver 2 in this offense, which has plenty of value. I know he didn't look great for the Bears last year, but I mean, it's the Bears, so we'll give him a bit of a pass. Obviously, some pretty poor quarterback play as far as having accurate targets, but I expect him to look sharper. Obviously, in a much better situation, so that can do wonders, although I don't think he's as good as he was when he was first on the Jacksonville Jaguars, but should be good enough at $6,200. I think that is way too cheap. You have Van Jefferson, who is dealing with an injury. He did not practice. If he happens to miss, it does put Skowronek and Tutu Atwell in play at their price points. But we'll start with Cooper Kupp here. Obviously, the matchup versus the Bills, they were tough on wide receivers last season, barely allowing any points per game. The fewest points allowed per game in the first year versus the pass, but don't care. It's Cooper Kupp. He finds ways to get the job done. They know how to get him open. 32% target share last year, 11 targets per game, nearly a touchdown per game, 115 receiving yards, 32% market share of the team's air yards, and a 71% weighted opportunity share. I don't see a reason not to like Cooper Kupp. Is he going to repeat what he did last year? I would say chances are that's unlikely, but we know he is Matthew Stafford's guy. He's going to get peppered with targets, and he finds mismatches throughout the defense. I don't really know how else to put it, but I'm going to have a large chunk of him in the captain spot and in the flex spot on this slate. As far as Allen Robinson goes, love that price point at $6,200. These numbers are on the Bears, so we can kind of get rid of those, but if you're looking at Robert Woods and Odell Beckham's numbers last season, Robert Woods had a 21% target share. Then obviously he got hurt. Odell, I believe, was pushing a 30+% target share in limited time with the Rams. So I'm expecting plenty of targets for Robinson this year. I believe his prop is currently at 4.5, 5 receptions, and a good chunk of yards. And if he can just hit those and get into the end zone, that's a fantastic play at $6,200. I think you can play him in the captain spot. Van Jefferson's going to be a bit of a question mark here, and it's always kind of tough to play him, but 50 yards per game last season, about a quarter of a touchdown per game, and 15% target share, but was used as a deep threat, 24% market share of the team's air yards. He would be purely a tournament play only for me. That's even if he plays. If he is out, then obviously opens up some time for Skowronek and Tutu Atwell. I think Atwell would be the preferred option here at $1,000, but that's going to be a wait and see thing. But at $1,000, I'd imagine he would pick up some ownership, and I do think he is an interesting flyer option. As far as the Bills are concerned, only thing different here is that we do not have Cole Beasley anymore. They brought in Jamison Crowder. So Isaiah McKenzie, Jamison Crowder, we kind of mixed in for that Cole Beasley role. But then you have Stephon Diggs and Gabriel Davis on the outside. These are going to be the two big dogs. Everyone's expecting big things from Gabe Davis this year, and I can get on board. I think he's a talent. We saw that in the playoffs versus the Kansas City Chiefs, where he had that amazing blow-up game. But Diggs, I like the price point a lot at $9,000. Nearly 10 targets per game last season, 72 yards and 6 receptions, over half a touchdown per game, and a 35% market share of the team's air yards. And the Rams gave up quite a bit of points to the wide receiver position last year. I know they have Jalen Ramsey, but still, I'd like the 5th most points per game to the position, nearly 40 points per game, despite being 6th DVOA versus the pass. But again, don't really care about matchups too much. Stephon Diggs should eat, and I think the price point is a little bit too low. Thought I should be closer to $10,000. So he's definitely looking like one of my favorite captain plays. Obviously, great correlation with Josh Allen, who I'm going to have a lot of. Wide receiver 2 for the Bills, Gabe Davis, expecting big things from him this season. You get a bit of a discount there, although I do expect a bigger role for Stephon Diggs, obviously. And if you're looking at his numbers last year, not going to impress you too much, but I'm expecting a big jump from him this season. I think he's in a very valuable role, and he should score a lot of fantasy points this season. Obviously, we saw his upside last year in the Kansas City game, what he can do. Not expecting that every single week, but he's definitely going to get the targets, and I do think he's got the talent for it. Although, point per dollar wise, I think I prefer Allen Robinson just because he's $1,000 cheaper. And then you have Jamison Crowder, who they brought in, and we also have Isaiah McKenzie. And if I had to pick between the two, I prefer McKenzie here. He's half the price, and I feel like he's going to be the preferred option in this offense. So I think it's just a bit of a pricing error on DraftKings side here. Obviously, the numbers we can't really look at too much because the situation's a lot different this season. But if we can get a handful of targets from Isaiah McKenzie at this price point, it's going to be hard to beat as far as being one of the better value plays on the entire slate. I expect him to be very popular. I'm not the only one thinking he's good value here, but it definitely makes a lot of sense. If he's going to have a valuable role in this passing offense, $2,400 is incredibly too cheap. So I like McKenzie a lot on this slate. And moving back over to DraftKings, I actually think I'm going to drop Stafford out of here, and we'll see if he fits after we do some things, but I think I'm going to try to prioritize getting Cooper Kupp in there first. So we're going to plug in Cooper Kupp. And like I said, I like a lot of these wide receivers, so we're going to have a lot of them in this lineup. I'm going to try to put Stephon Diggs in the captain spot. I know it's $13,500. We only have 64 remaining per player, but I'm hoping Isaiah McKenzie does open that up a little bit for me. So we have Allen in the flex spot. I want to correlate that with one of his pass catching options. So we're going to put Diggs in there. That leaves us $4K left. I still think we can fit in McKenzie and hopefully Allen Robinson. I'm hoping. So I love that price point of McKenzie. We're going to plug him in. I think he's going to be a very popular pump play. Maybe I shouldn't say pump play, but a cheap play on this slate. And we're going to try to fit in Allen Robinson. And that's doable. We do have $3,500 left for the last spot. It's nothing too amazing, but let's talk through tight end and defense first, and obviously kicker, and then we'll come back to try to see who's going to be the last spot. And moving on to tight end, nothing really too special here. You have the two starters in Dawson Knox and Tyler Higbee, and then I don't really want to play these options. Maybe you get a lucky touchdown at $400, but it's not really something you can bank on. I mean, the majority of the snaps, and I mean the large majority of the snaps as far as getting targets and whatnot, is going to be Dawson Knox and Tyler Higbee here. Both guys some very similar numbers in their offenses last season. I think they're very similar plays. Just Dawson Knox, a bit beefed up in the price point compared to Tyler Higbee, but both had around 40 yards per game last year, 3 to 4 receptions, 4 to 6 targets, 15% target share just about. Dawson Knox got into the end zone a bit more, but overall, two very similar plays. I'm not really going to go my way to play either one. I would say Dawson Knox is the better matchup if that's what you care about, but it's really going to be all about falling into the end zone because I don't really think yardage-wise at their price point they're going to get there by themselves. But they haven't fallen in the end zone. Maybe, and Dawson Knox does have a bit of a narrative going on with his brother. You can look that up yourself. And as far as the defenses are concerned, I typically never play the defense in the captain spot unless we have some either extreme weather conditions or there's just a really, really bad offense on their side. Even then, I hate to do it, but I don't really see a reason to like any of these defenses in this game. I guess the Bills defense is good. The Rams defense has some good players on there, but you're talking some two pretty high powered offenses here with a 52.5 point over-under, 25-point implied team total for the Rams, 27.5 for the Bills. Unless we get a lucky touchdown, I don't really see how these guys are viable, especially as far as being a captain. So I'm not a fan of either one. I would rather be underweight compared to the field here. And then as far as the kickers are concerned, Tyler Bass and Matt Gay, I think they're going to hit a couple field goals. It's just their upside's quite capped for tournaments. But if you're just looking for a cheap flex play that's probably going to get you anywhere from 6 to 10 points, I'd say on a median, as a median projection, I have them around 8 or 9. That's not bad. I mean, their props are currently sitting at 1.5. I actually think they could hit the over there. There should be a lot of points scored. And the defenses are good enough to where maybe the offenses can move the ball, but they stall out a little bit. But look, it's never exciting to play kickers. I probably wouldn't captain them. But as far as flex plays go, I don't think it's the worst thing you could do. Then moving over to DK here, honestly, James Cook looks like the best option there. If you wanted to take out Cooper Kupp and put in Matthew Stafford, because you already have a pass catching option with Allen Robinson there for Matthew Stafford, that would leave you 5,100 left for the final spot. It does look a little bit better, but even then, you're kind of dipping down to probably the kickers as being the best play there, unless you want to go with Jamison Crowder, which I'm not the biggest fan of. But you can build your own lineups. I would not recommend just stealing these because I'm building 150 lineups and I'm not exactly sure which ones I'm going to like the best yet. Really quick here, I wanted to head over to the optimizer. I have no settings here. I mean, if you're playing showdowns, you have to use a lot of settings. You have to do some build groups just to make sure you're getting the most correlated lineups possible, because that's the best way to take down tournaments if you are playing showdowns, which I tested the waters last year with 150 max and showdowns. Have not done that before, and honestly, it didn't go that bad at all. So I am looking forward to them this year. But I just wanted to see who was popping the most using some of the projections here. We can kind of look at projection-wise who's filling in lineups the best right now. And finally got them to crunch here. And obviously, like I said, no settings. And I think some guys are way too low. Some guys are way too high. Like I'm not going to play 70%. Allen Robinson, once you trim that down, you probably end up getting more Gabe Davis, who I think is way too low at only 10% here in the flex spot. But I think it makes sense. Like, these are the guys that are popping the most. Josh Allen, Robinson, Stephon Diggs. I would never have this much of a kicker at 51%. And obviously, you'd have to trim those down. But projection-wise, I think it makes sense who some of these guys are popping, the way roster construction looks like for the most part. But with that being said, that's all I got for you for the Showdown slate tonight. Hopefully, you all enjoyed. If you did, leave a like down below. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. I'll be here all season long trying to help you guys out the best I can, just presenting information and giving you my take on it. But wish you all the best of luck, and I will be here within the next couple of days posting some main slate stuff for this upcoming week for week 1 on Sunday.